All right, everybody, welcome back to Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Sports Original podcast, the live post-game show here from wherever you may be watching us. Of course, our video brought to you by the great folks over at BetUS. And if you're watching us, thanks for being with us. Of course, another day to celebrate. Yes, the Raiders, 25-10 winners over the New Orleans Saints in another game that was like watching two drunk people fight, as someone said last week. But hey, 2 wins in a row, the first time the Raiders do that, a lead, just an amazing day again by Brock Bowers, who sets 2 rookie records. Of course, he passes Mike Ditka's tight end as far as most receptions in a season for a rookie tight end, and then he goes on to pass Puka Nacua for the most receptions by a rookie, period. Receiver doesn't matter. Brock Bowers now owns that record. Amir Abdullah, before going out late in the game with an injury, had a big day as well. Scott Gulbransen with you, and joining me as always for these post-game shows is my good friend Murf from Raider Fan Radio. You can follow him on X at _MURF. That's Murf. Also, make sure you follow and subscribe over to Raiders Fan Radio. Watch him, Michelle, and Swag Jeff. They're great shows on Wednesday, and everything they do, we'll hear a little bit about more of the charity work they do because it's amazing as well. But just want to make sure you guys are all aware of that, and we're here to talk. He's going to give us our voice of the fan, right? And it's interesting. After last week, the win, not all fans were happy, but we're going to get into that as well. Murf, we're going to go right to you, man. I mean, look, the Raiders go out there today, some nice plays that they for the first time in a long time, really dominated time of possession. And yes, the Saints are a terrible team, but it doesn't matter. You still got to go out and execute. And Murf, from that perspective, yeah, the Raiders had to get 4 field goals to score some points in this one, but it doesn't matter. They still showed some moxie out there, making sure they dominated the control of the ball throughout on offense.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun game to watch. You know, it was interesting. Like last week, you know, we were all in our feelings after the win, and when you watch those 2 teams fighting each other, as you mentioned, looked like a couple of drunk guys fighting each other. It was a funky game last week. Where this one, you know, we should never apologize for a win, even though I understand the context of the draft and all that kind of stuff. But to see your team go out there and have not only a dominant performance against a pretty good defense, so offensively, we played really well. But like early in the game, I was getting a little frustrated because I'm like, why don't we feed Brock Bowers? Like, why are we not targeting him in the red zone? Like, why are we not pushing the ball downfield to this guy? If he's got a single, like, just get the ball out there to him. And then sure enough, the Raiders eventually started to do that. And the guy set records, and not just Raider records. He's setting NFL records. And so to set that kind of a tone this late in the season in terms of relevance, I think is really important for us as fans. And that's something that, you know, I'm never going to root for this team to lose. You know, I can understand being, you know, disappointed in the lowering of your draft position. But when you see things like this today, I couldn't be happier for that young man. I couldn't be happier for the way that the offense came together. More importantly, though, I couldn't be happier for the fans, including our good friend Michelle, my co-host here at Raiders Fan Radio, who traveled with her daughter, the first game they ever saw together. They had a girls' trip, so Jeff's wife is there. They went out to New Orleans to see this game. So I'm so happy for them. They got to see a win and got to see something a literal record-setting performance there in New Orleans by Brock Bowers and the Raiders. So that was pretty cool.
Amazing stuff there. And a shout out to Michelle for that. Obviously enjoy. So I'm sure you had a great time. It's New Orleans. I mean, believe me, I was looking at it saying, oh, if there's a game you want to go to, it's down in New Orleans. Always so much fun down there. But we certainly agree with that and hope Michelle had a great time. But yes, I mean, and that's the thing too. We talked about it, right? Which is progress. There's going to be a lot of changes with this team, not only from the roster perspective, but I believe as well at the coaching position. But that doesn't matter right now. You got to play out the strings, so to speak. The Raiders had 2 games left coming into this one. Of course, we heard all about their travel troubles, issues with the plane. They don't get into New Orleans until about 12 hours before they got to be at the stadium for the game. That's always a rough thing. I mean, it's tough when you're traveling across 2 time zones and you don't get any chance to really adjust, get to the hotel and get a full night in and all that kind of stuff. So the Raiders had that against them as well, but they come out, they do great things. We talked about, of course, the day that Amir Abdullah had 20 carries, 115 yards, and 5.8 average. No touchdowns, of course. The Raiders struggled again in the red zone. But a good example of, I think, at times, a lot of people talk about this offensive line and it being bad. And a lot of that because we've seen them unable to run the ball. Now, some of that was going back to the scheme issues with Luke Getsy and all of that. But I think you look at this and you see what's happened is this line needs some help. They need some depth. But overall, Murph, we're starting to see them gel a little bit. As we saw the defense, second game in a row, they had multiple takeaways today, as you saw towards the end of the game there with that interception, the second one of Spencer Rattler, is you got to look at these. I'm not saying the Raiders are a good team yet, but what I am saying, to your point, is that you have to look at some of the positives coming down the stretch as a fan, because if not, you're just going to be mired in the bad things. And at least you see this team and some of these guys who have a shot to make this roster again next year fighting all the way to the end.
Yeah, I mentioned that the offense had a pretty good day today, and especially since that, look, the Saints' offense is completely decimated by injury, but their defense is pretty good. Like, they've still got some great players on there. I mean, shout out Cam Jordan, and I mean, they've still got some ballers on that defense. And so this idea that the Raiders could go on the road, it's still a late win, late in the season on the road victory. And that offensive line showed up against a really good, defensive front seven for the Saints. There's a couple of plays I think that they would want back. Some of the goal line, like early on with goal line, I was getting real frustrated here. I'm like, why are we not throwing it to 89? As I mentioned earlier, here we are. We're running these short run plays. Zamir White's on the IR, so we know, we don't really have a good short yardage back. Like, why are we not being more creative there? So you would have liked to have seen a little more push. I'm not an offensive line coach, but I do know enough about offensive line, Andre James, that when you're standing up and not, shooting out of your stance, that's never a good thing. And so I think that 68 would probably want some plays back. And I'll be interested to see what the Raiders do offensively when it comes to the line coming up in this draft, because I think that JPJ is going to be our next center. And then we're going to need another guard. We're going to need another left guard because Parham played great today on the right side, along with DJ Glaze. This draft class was pretty solid, man, and it showed up on our offensive line today, Scott. So I'm with you. I mean, this team has a lot of holes. We do need depth. I fully agree with you there. But then also, too, you look at the way that the planets have kind of aligned for our Raiders this year in terms of free agency. Now, I know they didn't align last year in the draft when it came to quarterback, and it's probably not going to align the way that we would want to see it happen this year at quarterback, but it is going to align for free agency. And so when it comes to free agency, although we got 20 guys, I believe, that are going to be free agents, and 15 of them are guys that saw a lot of playing time this year. So we're going to have all this cap space, but if there's anybody like Bob Spillane or Divine Diablo, Malcolm Kuntz, those guys that we want to bring back, we're going to have to spend money on those players. But all that said, we're still going to have more money to go out there and to spend it on maybe a free agent guard, right? So we can fill those holes via free agency, I'm hoping, Scott. But go back to it. Offensive line, offensive output today. I know the Saints are down, but we'll take it, man. It's still an NFL team.
And I'll tell you what, also want to thank Anthony Velasquez, Super Chat, $10, which goes all to the One Nation Foundation. You can see that on Murph's hat as well. That's where it's going. And he says, barring a trade up, it looks like we're not getting Sanders or Ward. So coming around to the idea of adding more playmakers for that eventual franchise quarterback. And don't disagree with you, Anthony. I don't, listen, I know we saw Shedeur Sanders go out in the bowl game yesterday and wear New York Giants cleats. And of course, his team got whopped, just killed. But at the same time, yeah, the situation next year with the quarterback, it's going to be a tough one because to your point about, get playmakers. If you're not going to get one of those two top quarterbacks, you still need to take a quarterback. It doesn't matter. One of those lower tier guys to see if maybe you can strike gold, because you got to just keep taking them until you hit on one. The other thing with that, Murph, is that, listen, the Raiders, you could get those playmakers, but then that means your team's going to get better, even if you don't have the quote unquote franchise quarterback. So you're not going to then be in the top 5 pick. Now, I know it could be a deeper quarterback class next year, the following year, whatever. The longer you put it off, I think the bigger of an issue it remains for the Raiders. But Murph, there's no question that the Raiders winning, of course, hurts that draft stock, but you don't know what's going to happen between now and then. You don't know what teams are open to trades. You don't know what teams might change plans. It's all up in the air. And as we sit here today, just like Anthony, we're all just guessing. We're all just kind of summarizing. But clearly, Aidan O'Connell had a good day today. But Aidan O'Connell clearly is a very good backup quarterback, and you want him to be part of this Raider organization as long as he can be. But he's not the dynamic guy that's going to take you over the hump and perhaps take you to that next level.
No, unfortunately not. You know, and I hate that for Aidan because, I mean, you know, I root for the guy. I mean, we talk about all the time on this show and on Raiders Fan Radio as well that, you know, we respect the work ethic. We respect the dedication. He's fully aware of his deficiencies when it comes to playing quarterback and is willing to admit that and to invest in it and to be the best, you know, NFL quarterback that he possibly can be. But unfortunately, at least at this point in his career, it just doesn't look like he's going to be that guy. And so it is important for the Raiders to keep swinging on a quarterback until we finally hit one. And so am I saying let's overdraft one in the first round? Absolutely not. Because Ashton Genty, and we're all going to get a whole load of Ashton Genty when we get to watch Boise State and the rest of this college football playoff happen. Can you imagine him in this backfield, you know, and matched up with a Jalen Milroe or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of potential there for the Raiders to draft a quarterback in the higher part of round 2. And, you know, look, we can say what we want about Derek, and I take my relative shots at Derek all the time, but Derek Carr pre-injury was pretty damn good, and that was a second-round guy coming out of a group of 5 school. So there is opportunity out there. There are other quarterbacks. Let's see what everyone wants to weigh their opinion on Cam and Shedeur here after these 2 bowl games. Well, guess what, y'all? Those bowl games were, for the most part, meaningless. You know what I mean? Like, there was no stakes on the line. Let's see what Carson Beck looks like. Let's see what Quinn Ewers looks like. Let's see what Dylan Gabriel looks like when everything is on the line. Why did Tua Tagovailoa get drafted? Because when he came in relief of Jalen Hurts and won Alabama national championship. Like, right? Like, so let's see what happens when the highest of stakes are on the line, not these meaningless, practically preseason bowl exhibition style bowl games. Let's find out what's on the line. And I promise you, and I've felt like this for most of this football season and watching college football this year, there's going to be a panic at quarterback because there always is. And the Raiders are going to be part of that formula. And so let's see where this goes. There's rumors now about Milroe going back to college and playing at Oregon. So that's all blogs and Reddit and stuff at this point. So I don't believe any of that. But anyways, my point being though is that somebody is going to elevate. There are going to be players that are going to elevate in this draft. And would it be the worst thing in the world for us to draft a quarterback high in the second round and pair him up with a guy like Ashton Genty, man? Like, and I'm not a BPA guy, but it worked out pretty freaking well with Brock Bowers. So if that's the way that the Raiders are going to go, then okay, sign me up, man. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm so conflicted because I felt like I was in the Shedeur Sanders camp or this Cam Ward camp, but now, like, I mean, the Raiders are going to have a choice. So unless they've got a trade partner to where they can fly up the freaking draft board and pull one of those 2 guys, outside of that, you're looking at a second-round guy.
We'll see what they do. And East Coast Raider apparently has some feedback for us. We don't know what we're talking about. This is the same guy who just said Aidan O'Connell is the guy. Clearly, he doesn't watch a lot of football. East Coast Raider. Aidan O'Connell is not a franchise quarterback. Jordan Ford, $5. Appreciate the super chat to the One Nation Foundation. Thank you. I say if you can't get Shedeur or Cam, you call the Lions about Hendon Hooker. I've been hearing this for 6 months. The problem is, again, guys, you don't give up quarterbacks, especially future quarterbacks, just like the nonsense with the J.J. McCarthy talk, which is just crap. You don't trade your future quarterback. Okay. So all of this talk, I don't blame people for trying to find solutions, and I appreciate that at least, but that's not even the situation that's going to happen. Okay. Hendon Hooker is a guy that is going to be the heir apparent in Detroit. They have a very solid team, and I know he's on a 3-year deal. Goff is now, but it's not going to happen. So we'll see. The Raiders are going to have to come up with a solution. It's not going to be an easy one, but we'll certainly see how it goes. All right, real quick, we're going to take a break, and I just want to tell you real quickly about our good friends at BetUS. BetUS, 150% sign-up bonus. That's right. If you bet your football over there and you deposit up to $2,000 maximum, you can get 150% sign-up bonus. That's YouTube 150. Use that promo code, and they are going to give you that again. Start playing today over there. We have been with BetUS all season long. Mo and I really enjoying it. I've heard people say that they had bad experiences with BetUS. I don't think so. I've not had a problem getting money out, putting money in. Everything has gone swimmingly, and we certainly appreciate their support of Silver and Black today. Again, 150% sign-up bonus. Go over there. We're getting ready for these big college football playoff games and, of course, the NFL playoff games coming up. If you haven't already done it, get that 150% sign-up bonus. Just use the promo code YouTube150. All right, back here, segment number 2 of Silver and Black today. The post-game edition. Raiders win their second straight 25-10 over the New Orleans Saints. Scott Gulbransen, Murf from Raiders Fan Radio with you. And we talked about him earlier, Murf, and Brock Bowers. Just this kid, as long as he, knock on wood, stays healthy over the course of his career, he is something special. And again, this is without a dominant quarterback. This is with a team that's in flux, that's struggled all year long. He broke the tight end reception record that was held by Mike Ditka forever. And then he broke Puka Nakua's reception record overall for a rookie in the same game. I mean, this guy is without a doubt such a special. And again, we talked about it when the day he was drafted. It shocked us, like a lot of you, but at the same time, you understood it because he is such a talent. And to your point, again, I think that's the importance of coaching here, not only from the head coach, but also from the offensive coordinator. Of course, Scott Turner has done a much better job than Luke Getsy, and he deserves credit for that. At the same time, the Raiders don't have an elite play caller yet. If they get an elite play caller, solidify the quarterback position, I'm telling you, Brock Bowers, Murph, it's early, I understand, but Brock Bowers has the ability and the opportunity, I believe, to be the best tight end to ever play the game based on his start.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you stack him up against Raider tight ends, I mean, we have a rich history of Raider tight ends, going from Ray Chester to Dave Casper, Todd Christensen, even Zach Miller briefly, Darren Waller. We've had some really, Hall of Fame tight ends that have played for this organization. And so the idea now that that we've got this young man that came in and is not only setting Raider records for tight end, but Raider records at receiving or with receiving, and then breaking NFL records. I mean, he's got the most. He's got 1,144 receiving yards. That's the most in franchise history by a rookie. Tight end in NFL history. 108 receptions obviously breaks the Raider record set by Darren Waller at 107. But then most in season as well. So it's just like it's bananas, man, and I can't. Praise this young man enough. He's already got a Hall of Fame hairline. Now he's got a freaking Hall of Fame rookie season to put under his belt as well. And, Bulldogs rejoice, man. I don't know. Maybe we draft Carson Beck just so we can get those guys back together again. But man, he's really I'm telling you, listen, and I'm an older guy. I've turned the calendar a few times like you have, Scott. My affinity for younger players is like, I don't really have it a lot because I'm a Kenny Stabler guy, right? Like I'm a Cliff Branch guy. I'm a Fred Bull guys from our past that I looked up to that were much older than I was. And I look to those guys. So it's rare that I'll look at like a younger player and be like in awe of a younger player. That was me today on the couch over there. I was in awe watching Brock Bowers. And this is with, like you said, improved play calling, but still not elite. Decent quarterback play, far from elite. If we have serviceable play calling, serviceable protection, serviceable freaking, quarterback play with even a minimal threat other than him in this offense, a la Jacoby Myers, dude is going to go nuts. Like, again, I'm not trying to get all up in my feelings or anything off of one season or one game or whatever, but like, this is Hall of Fame potential. Like, this is generational talent we're talking about here that this young man has. And on top of it, he's quiet, he's humble, and when stuff starts to go down, he's one of the first ones to jump into the mix and to get in between his teammates and other people. And I was asking Valerie's son Mason, huge Georgia Bulldog fan. We watch a lot of Georgia games. And I was asking him, like, does Brock, like, has that ever been his thing before? Like, has he ever gotten scrappy? And he's like, not really, but when someone messes with him or one of his teammates, he'll go just like that. And I'm like, that's perfect. Like, what's the knock? I guess that's what I would say. Throw it back to you, Scott. Is it like, I could sit here and just rhapsodize about this young man nonstop because nothing is pointed to the criticism.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, listen, every player can, quote unquote, get better. So we'll see what the get better is on Brock Bowers, because I can't see it yet. I think the only get better for me that I've seen is this team just getting him the ball more. They tried to obviously later on give him the ball, carrying it from the backfield. Didn't work out great on that play. But overall, it's just amazing. I thought the announcers today did a good job, too, of explaining how at the top of his route, he will go at one speed and then he increases his speed as he goes. He kind of uses that push at the very end to kind of get that spark. And that's what makes him special. And it's exactly coming out of Georgia. When we talked to the reporter that covered him down there, that's what he said, is he puts it into a higher gear when he tries to separate himself, even from the fastest defensive back, even if he's lined up against that. But he's often mismatched, and that's going to help them significantly. And listen, having him on that Raider offense is a huge deal because, yes, Jacoby Myers, good receiver, but outside of that, Trey Tucker, good guy, did well today, of course, with a nice touchdown, a couple other nice catches as well, and a player I hope sticks around too. But they also need help out there as well. But you have Brock Bowers, and I'm telling you, just like you guys saw with the Chiefs all these years and Travis Kelce, that's what you have when you have a guy that is a tight end like that, or you saw Rob Gronkowski in New England. It's the same kind of player. Whenever he's on the field, he is a danger. Don't forget the TE after his name as far as tight end goes. He is an athlete. He's a player that can line up anywhere and be used as an offensive weapon. So it's good. Murf, before we go here in a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about the One Nation Foundation as we always do, I want to talk about the defense, because the defense, while not perfect, of course, they had some blown plays. We saw a long play that Rattler got the touchdown on a broken coverage. But overall, you got to like what this defense did. If you look at the statistics, I know that's only one side of the story. Saints only had 13 first downs. They were 1 of 10 on third down. So Raiders defense on third down was stellar. In the red zone only once for New Orleans, and they were 0 for 1 there. They kept the Saints to 269 total offensive yards. And again, I know the Saints team's not a great team. I'm not saying the Raiders defense went out there and shut down Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Not what I'm saying, but you play who you play. And there's always a possibility that you don't play well against even bad teams. But the Raiders defense today, Murph, I thought flying around, doing a great job. The usual suspects. Palomau did amazingly well back there, as he looks to be a guy who wants to stay in the mix in the future in silver and black. So I really like the defense. I thought it was an inspired play and going against a depleted New Orleans team, but they executed and it showed.
Yeah, if this is a healthy Raiders defense, I mean, this could have been a shutout today. I mean, think about that. If you've got a healthy Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby and Jacorian Bennett, and, of course, you mentioned Polamalu. And so although we missed Marcus Epps, I mean, I would argue that Polamalu is probably outplaying him at this point prior to the injury. So, but anyways, this defensive performance was fantastic, and it was nice to see them create. And I think that that's the thing that they've missed for so long. And could we pin that? And do we need to remain in context that this was a depleted Saints offense? Sure. Because if that's Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave and Derek Carr, are you going to get that same, level of play or mistakes or things that happen? I don't know. But at the end of the day, we got who we got. We played who we played, and the Raiders defense created. And they created a lot of turnovers, and they created opportunistic plays. And I think that that's another thing that's it's missed from this Raiders team, offensively and defensively especially, is where's those opportunity plays? Where's those flash Jack Jones plays that we saw that beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead? Well, that showed up a little bit today, right? We saw him make a great interception going into the sideline. And so we saw great pressure today. But Bob Spillane made a couple of mistakes early on, but then came right back and almost had a great pick himself. And so when we see that those plays starting to come together, you see 5 flashing across your screen. Holy crap, we haven't seen that guy in a minute. And so to see that happen for this Raider defense, man, it's encouraging. And, that's where the thing is that, like, and we were kind of joking well, I wasn't joking because I get my feelings every year about these damn Raiders, but like, we were talking about on Raiders Fan Radio, it was like, when you look at the amount of cap space, as I mentioned, and you look at the idea that they could like fill some of these holes, we've already got a really pretty good defense, man, with just a little bit of health and a little bit of, depth in this defense. And this could be a freaking, I know, but it could be a top 10 defense. I'm just saying, this could be. But, and then like, what's the hardest thing in sports to figure out? Franchise quarterback for an NFL football team. So it's like, I say, that's the only thing they need to do. But really, that's the most important. If they get that part figured out, damn, Scott, there's a lot of flashes of talent. I'll just say that's what we saw today defensively. There was speed, quickness to the ball, creation, like opportunistic, like that's what you want out of your defense. Who cares what happens between the 20s? Just keep them out of the end zone. You know what I mean? Just get the ball back. Just stop them on third down. You know what I mean? Like, those are the kind of things that need to happen. And we hadn't seen that out of a Raider defense much this year, but we saw it today. And so regardless of the context, I'm not going to be like, rah, rah, because I get it. It's the Saints. But at the same time, it was still good. We still won. So let's credit those guys for playing hard.
You have to, and I think that's the thing is they're nowhere near where they need to be as far as being a top unit. But at the same time, you see those flashes, and it's a very depleted unit. And the quarterback position, again, you're gonna hear a lot about the quarterback position on our show because it's the thing the Raiders have to figure out. And whether they got to do it. And listen, I know a lot of people aren't in love with Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. I get that, but it doesn't matter if Tom Telesco and the Raiders brass think one of those guys is the guy, then they'll do what they can. Doesn't mean they'll be successful, but they'll do what they can to move up to get him. New England doesn't need a quarterback. They might be willing to trade back, depending who they're looking at. So there's lots of trade partners that could be out there. The offseason will be fascinating. I think that's the situation. And, we have the final game next week, of course, the Raiders and the Chargers. Will the Chargers start their frontline guys now that they've guaranteed a playoff spot? Do they start Justin Herbert? Are the Raiders going to win 3 in a row to end the season? We'll see. And the draft order will change again. And we'll get an updated draft order when we talk to you on our Tuesday show. But nonetheless, Murph, I think that's the thing here too, is as a player, as a coach, even if Antonio Pierce isn't back, he wants to go out winning 3 in a row. The players want to go into the offseason, whether they're going to stick around or not. You want to go feeling like, hey, you know what? We started to do something better at the end of the year. And I know a lot of fans don't like it because of the draft situation. But at the end of the day, these guys are pros. They want to go out there. They want to continue to be professional football players. They want to get paid for it. And so you're going to see that best effort come forward. So one more week to go, Murph. And when we hear whether the Chargers are playing everybody or not, we'll know. And I think that'll even give the Raiders another boost, an opportunity to go out there and win a third game in a row, and this time at home to close out the season.
I got a question for you, Scott. Do you think that by doing that, it earns Antonio Pierce a square look at retaining his job going into next season? Because, 10-game losing streak, like, to me, like, that doesn't get erased off of a 3-game winning streak against depleted football teams, and depleted even including the Chargers, who, like you said, might be sitting people down. And so do you feel like some of these reports that came out where it's like, oh, okay, like, Mark Davis just wants to see Antonio Pierce and the Raiders finish strong, and if they do, then that will factor into to his decision to retain Antonio Pierce? I'm just giving my opinion real fast, but I don't think so. I don't think that that's enough, nor do I think that that's the direction that the team should go, considering that if we are going to draft a quarterback, whether that's a first rounder or a second rounder, doesn't matter. I would love to see an offensive-minded head coach come in, because then you don't have to worry about the rotation of offensive coordinators and whatnot. So there's a whole big picture there. But do you feel like this was, because you're locked in a lot more than I am. Do you feel like, is this going to be enough? And is there any truth to those reports coming out that Mark's actually going to consider it, or was that just lip service?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think there's any chance. I really don't. Now, I'd be shocked if Antonio Pierce is the coach next year. I just would be. I think by I think it was the Rossini report you're talking about, where, hey, if I want to see how it ends. I think that's Mark Davis's way of just being polite and saying, I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not going to say he can save his job or he's lost his job or whatever, because we're going to talk about that at the end of the season. But I go back to a couple things that I keep harping on with this situation. And I got a lot of people who come after me and tell me why Antonio Pierce should be the coach. And they never give me any good reason other than he doesn't have this, he doesn't have that, he doesn't have this. Tom Telesco sucks. Like, those are the reasons. And I keep saying, no resume on the grass. What did he say? You look at it, you look at the management of the games. We saw it again today. We saw another kick block today. I've stayed positive because the Raiders won this game. We saw an extra point blocked again. There's just these lapses of focus on this team, even though they play hard. There's no question. They've never quit on this coach, which is great. You shouldn't expect that anyway. They're professional football players. But you look at the division, okay? Now, Denver still up in the air. If they would have won in Cincinnati yesterday, they would have gotten in the playoffs. They would have secured the playoffs, and that would have meant every team in the division was in the playoffs except the Raiders. Now, you're looking at Sean Payton, who made, I think, a disastrous coaching call, not going for two yesterday against the Bengals. But nonetheless, you look at him, you look at Andy Reid, you look at what Jim Harbaugh's done in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Are you going to tell me, as an owner, as a football fan, even if you hate those teams, which Raider Nation does, you're going to roll with Antonio? You're going to say he deserves another chance after you saw what two coaches were able to do very quickly in their stops, including Jim Harbaugh, which a lot of people, remember, Murph, a lot of people on this show, in this chat, told me that Harbaugh was past his prime. He was not going to relate to players, jolly good fellow, all that stuff, and that the Chargers roster was worse than the Raiders and blah, 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 blah. And you see what happens. I think this Raiders team, even if they can't get the quarterback this year and they improve in other areas greatly through free agency and the draft, I think with the right coach, they can turn things around rather quickly, even if they don't have the quarterback. They still got to get it. But I think that's how much having a top-notch coach means. And I don't know who that coach is. There's a lot of names we could talk about, but I just don't see Antonio Pierce ever. What evidence does anyone have to show me that he's shown any ability to turn things around? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, and that's a great way to put it, Scott, because I've asked this question a lot of Raider fans, online and on our shows and whatnot, is that, like, at what point do we stop making excuses? Like, at what point do we stop lowering the standard? Like, what is the standard? The standard is championships, right? That's the standard. Just win, baby. Commitment to excellence, pride and poise. Greatness of the Raiders is in his future. You name it, right? We can quote Al Davis all day long. And so at what point did you ever hear Al Davis say, well, yeah, but? You never heard that at Al Davis. And Al Davis was definitive and was decisive with his decision-making based on the team's ability to win. And not just win, but win championships. And so I know Al lost his fastball towards the end of his life, but so the bottom line is the man was the maverick of the NFL, literally formed the modern-day NFL, and won 3 championships along the way. So I trust his opinion and his mindset more than I do more than Camaro Guy 69 on Twitter, okay? So we're not going to lower the standard anymore. We're not going to do that. And so we need to focus on being the absolute best, and to make excuses for a now 4-win coach. I'm with you, Scott. I don't like, what is it? What is the thing? Like, point at the thing. Well, they play hard. Well, okay. So should every player in the NFL. That's like being on time. I'm not going to celebrate you playing hard. You know what I mean? Or like, oh, they didn't quit. Well, yeah, because you're not supposed to quit. Like, that's not a thing. You know what I'm saying? So, like, the idea that those are the things that, like, there's nothing to point at. And I didn't bring this all up just so I could sit here and crap on Antonio Pierce, but I brought it up because what are we sacrificing in the process? Like, what's the opportunity cost here? Out there for you finance guys, what's the opportunity cost by not investing into the pursuit of Ben Johnson, right? Or you talk about all the different names out there. And Raider Nation, if you're listening to this show, you know them all, from Vrabel to everybody else that's out there. What's the opportunity cost to wait and see what Antonio Pierce can do? I don't think so, man. I think that this is a hard reset for the Raiders, not only in the front office by the influence of Sir Thomas Brady, but you're going to get a hard reset when it comes to this coaching staff, because you're going to have a hard reset already at quarterback. It's time for a turnover, and this could be something special for this Raider team. This could be We've got some great veteran players on this football team. I hope guys like Max Crosby don't get in their feelings and want to move on and all that kind of stuff that's come out this week. I hope that we retain our KG veterans, guys that are contributors, add in some fresh young talent, add in a competent offensive coaching staff. Then with the influence of again, Tom Brady and Telesco so far has knocked it out of the park when it comes to the draft. Like, there's a lot of positivity there. So do you want to put that, the fulcrum point of all that be Antonio Pierce? I'm sorry. Like, I love the guy. I love the way he represents the Raiders. I'd love to have a beer with him. You know what I mean? But like,
sure.
In terms of like coaching,
like you said, there's a difference between liking somebody and them being the right person for the job. And again, I just go back to, and it's not all his fault. I've never said that the condition of the Raiders is all Antonio Pierce's fault, because he doesn't sign players, and he didn't sign the quarterback. He didn't sign Minshew. All that stuff, which is absolutely accurate. It's a organizational failure. They gave him a shot most people don't get, and that's moving from a position coach to a head coach. He had a shot. Now, he wasn't given all the tools, the perfect tools to make it easy. And so it was up. I said this at the beginning of the year, Murph, to Mo on this show. I said, he's got a really big uphill battle. Now, doesn't mean he can't do it. And that's kind of how we started the year off. It's like, okay, he's got a bigger battle than most people do, and we'll see what he's able to do. And it just didn't work out. And so I think that they got to move on. They got to figure out what they're going to do with that situation. And we'll see. They'll decide pretty soon here. And we'll be here, of course, to talk about it and to get your opinions, as we always do. Thank you again for everybody in the chat there, too. All right. Now, as you know, we've had some super chats today. Thank you all for donating. That all goes to the One Nation Foundation, of course, which was established to help out Raiders charities by Murph and the crew over there at Raiders Fan Radio. Murph, tell everybody about One Nation Foundation, what they can do to be involved, and how they can contribute.
Yeah, thank you. You can just support the One Nation Foundation best by going to our website, RaidersFanRadio.com. There's a drop-down button on there for the One Nation Foundation. And you can click that, hit the donate, and you just go. So RaidersFanRadio.com, One Nation Foundation button, hit the donate button. That goes to our PayPal, and 100% of that money that you donate on the PayPal comes to the One Nation Foundation. We love Super Chats, and thank you to everybody on the YouTube, not only on this show, but everybody over at Raiders Fan Radio. We appreciate those Super Chats, but Google takes a little bit of a cut. When you go directly to the PayPal at RaidersFanRadio.com, there's no cut there. 100% of that money comes straight to the foundation. And with that money, we support Raiders-related charities, like the good folks at Raider Dad, who have absolutely been crushing it this year. Shout out Josh Caminite. Shout out Raider Dad. They've done an amazing, amazing job. And so appreciate them and the hard work they're doing, taking underprivileged kids to Raider games and also their parental figures. And then obviously much respect to the Bolitnikoff Foundation, which is our main foundation that we give to. They're taking young women at risk of domestic violence and substance abuse and providing them not only safe spaces, but rehabilitative services, counseling services. And they just opened a new facility called Tracy's Place of Hope, and that's down in Southern Nevada on the St. Jude's Ranch. And I believe they're taking in 16 young women currently, and giving them that safe space. And, you know, the money that we get, and, you know, because sometimes we'll get, like, we have had massive ones. Like, we had Jesse Perkins on the show the other night, gave us like $200 in one super chat. And then we have folks that'll give like $5 and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not Jesse. Right? $5, $200, all of it matters, because what you're doing is, like, these young women, they're fleeing domestic situations, so they don't have anything. So socks and underwear and toothpaste and all these things are very important. And so even just a few bucks, man, you're making a difference in people's lives, in these young women's lives. And so we can't be more honored to be part of it. We just, like, you know, we like to say we're just knuckleheads with microphones, and we just want to be vessels for the foundation. It's Raider Nation's generosity. That's where this stuff comes from. Everybody that's listening to this show or listens to our show. So again, thank you not only to all of those of you that are out there and support the One Nation Foundation. Thank you to the advertisers. So if you can't support us monetarily, just hit a like, hit a subscribe here at Silver and Black Today. We use Silver and Black Today on the podcast, Raiders Fan Radio on the podcast. Find us on the YouTubes. And thank you, Scott, as always, for the platform to talk about our charity.
Of course. No, we appreciate it. And make sure you get over there, onenationfoundation.net. Again, onenationfoundation.net. Go over and do that. And like Murph said, if you contribute directly, nobody's getting a cut. It's going right to all those charities, which is a big deal. So we appreciate that. Murf, as always, man, we got one more chance to do this next week. We appreciate you being here and always representing Raider Nation. And I know not everybody always agrees with what you have to say, but everyone knows that it comes from the heart and that you care because your Raiders mean a lot to you. So thanks, my friend.
What do you mean nobody agrees with me, Scott?
Some people don't agree with you.
You mean there's division in Raider Nation? You mean there's division around quarterbacks and coaches and draft positions and all that? That's crazy. I can't believe that. But no, I'm being silly. But thank you, as always, for having me on here. We got one more to go, so I'll just say parting words. Raider Nation, enjoy it, because I promise you a month from now, you're going to be going, man, I wish I could watch the Raiders on Sunday. Even when they piss you off, you're going to be wishing that you could watch some Raider football. So take in the last week. Me and one of my co-hosts, Swag Jeff, my best friend too, we talked the other day, and he's like, bro, we need to watch the last game together. I'm like, yes, we do. I'm like, let's get together, enjoy it with your friends, enjoy it with your family. Raider Nation is undefeated. Celebrate it. It wasn't the season that we all wanted, but it's the season we got. So let's go silver and black. Let's beat let's beat the stuffing out of the freaking Chargers. Let's go, Raiders. Raiders!
There you go. There's Murf, Raiders Fan Radio. Make sure you follow him on X @_Murf, MURF. And of course, go subscribe to Raiders Fan Radio on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast too. Make sure you check out their audio. Make sure you rate and review their stuff as well. All right, my friend, take care of yourself.
All right, Scott. Love you, man. See you next week.
Same here, buddy. All right, there you go. And everybody, we appreciate you being with us again here on the Postgame Show. Of course, brought to you by our good friends at BetUS. Again, one more time, got to tell you, 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000. Use the promo code YouTube150, YouTube150, and start playing today over there. Thanks to the folks over there as well. They've been great sponsors, great opportunities for us to bring you these shows every week and after every game. So thank you to them again. Also, thank you guys to you. Appreciate everybody in the chat and everybody listening to the show. Mo and I will be back on Tuesday with a new show. We'll talk a little bit more about this game, a little more X's and O's, but we'll also get into some of the future looking, what other rumors are going to pop out of here. The coaching situation, I don't think we're going to know anything clearly until after the final whistle next week as the Raiders take on the Chargers. But do us a favor, make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your audio. Just look for Silver and Black today. Do us a favor, once you subscribe, rate and review. We always appreciate that very much. On video, make sure you subscribe, hit that notifications bell. That way, every time we have a new video or go live, you're going to know about it. We appreciate that too as well, wherever you may be watching us across the different platforms. For Murf, for our producer, Mike Robier at Odyssey, I am Scott Gulbransen. This has been Silver and Black today. The postgame edition, the Raiders, they win their second in a row, 25-10. We will see you all this week. Take care of yourselves now. Bye-bye.